Classic Beats.
People of color being attacked by dogs and people of color being sprayed with hoses. That's what they were fighting for. Back then, they were just fighting
Yeah.
for a chance to vote. People like Martin Luther King Jr., people like Malcolm X, these people died to help us um, be in a position to have the power that we have now, which is to be able to cast a vote and make a decision about the people that have controls over our lives. So, I mean, if you in your own community need a reason to
Hmm.
vote, look at a person like George Floyd. If the people in your city are not open to police reform, are not open to having the conversation about defunding the police, are not open to issues concerning economic equality, judicial equality, and racial equality, right? If they're scared to say Black Lives Matter, you have the power to put people in those positions who do believe that Black Lives Matter, who do believe in
Hmm.
racial equality, economic equality, judicial equality,
That's right.
right?
That's
Who
right.
see us as human beings. And if the people in your community don't feel that way, vote them out. It's that simple. It's just vote them out. We don't have enough time to sit around and hope that people change their minds.
Yeah, Bumpy, you point out something so important. We have the power, and that is in our vote, and that is with our voice, and that's how we use our voice. I think of where we are right now. People say this is a particular moment, but it is a movement, not just a moment, it is a movement. Why, in your opinion, was it George Floyd's death? Why was that the chosen brutality for people to say, oh my God, Black people are still oppressed in this country, and it is not fair?
I think it's twofold, Carrie. And so many different encounters with between people of color and the police, there simply is no proof of what happened in the interaction.
Mm,
And so what happens is in a court of law, it tends to lean towards the policeman's point of view, right? In this case, we saw very clearly what happened. I think the other thing is due to the fact that everyone was at home, basically during this time period in relation to the coronavirus. You couldn't avoid it, right? It was on every television station, it was on every
absolutely.
social media platform. Everywhere you turn, you were constantly hit upside the head with this message. You see in the interaction that this man did nothing to deserve what happened.
That's right. So well said. Because if you think about it, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't worth it, and he didn't have to lose his life. I think that you touched on something that a lot of people talk about, and that is now defunding the police. That has been such a huge conversation, but there's so many misconceptions around defunding and dismantling. If you will, educate the audience.
All right, so most people, when they hear the term defund the police, they tend to think of, oh, they're going to take away our police department. Nothing could be further from the point. Defunding the police means that in certain communities, even Houston, take for example, we had over $1 billion allocated to our police force. Now, what is that money being used for? Some of that money tends to be allocated towards riot shields, right? Pepper spray, right? That kind of thing. That's only used against the people that fund this budget, right? So why would the people want to supply the police with the means to oppress them? If the police are concerned about the situations in certain
Yeah.
communities with a higher crime rate, well, higher crime rates tend to happen in communities where there's not there's not employment opportunities, right? There's not a lot of social services, and people are going to do what they need to do to take care of
For
themselves
sure.
and their families. When the community has more opportunities for employment, more opportunities for upward mobility, then they tend to be a less of a strain on the government. They tend to have a lower crime rate. And because of that, we'll have less need for the police in those communities.
You are passionate about so many different things in terms of making sure that we are holding our leaders accountable. Talk to me about some of the other projects that you're working on.
Well, right now, obviously, being a part of More Than a Vote is essential. We're dealing with primaries in this country right now. And we just want to educate people. We want to inform people because people are tired, they're angry, they're concerned, and they want information and they want action. And so we want to make sure that we give them the right information and lead them in the right direction. And we thank the people that do not look like us for standing with us right now because it's very
Amen.
important that people who aren't black be involved because if black people could have gotten rid of racism, we would have done it hundreds of years ago. And so I'm trying to use my voice and my platform just to let people know that if they feel like I do, there's a number of places they can go to enact change in their community. People need to know about how their city council runs. They need to know that they have the ability to speak when city council meets, to let them know that that's not the way that they feel their city needs to be run. Those are not the places that they feel the money of their
And
community
Bun,
needs to be allocated.
and Bubby, even a step further, they could run for office in their local community. They can run for positions. Like, people act like they leave it up to somebody else. If you're upset, it's not hard to get on the school board. It's not hard to be a part of the city council. It really isn't. And depending on how small your town is, you could be a mayor. It's the power is with the people, and we need to just know that that's happening.
Absolutely. And it's always been with the people. You know, if you look at Trayvon Martin's mother, Sabrina Fulton, right? She felt that there was a system of racism and a system of oppression that led to her son's death. And so what did she do? She ran for city council, and she was elected to city council. Our own former president, 44, Barack Obama, right, started in the community as an activist, ran for an elected position, became senator, ran for another elected position, and became president of the United States. So don't think that you can't make a difference. You know what I'm saying? You don't need a lot of money. You don't need a lot of power. Your voice is enough to make a difference.
Amen. I feel like I need to go out and run for something. You gave me a rousing speech there, sir. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this. When I talk to my brothers, I have to ask you, as a Black man, how are you doing? Are you okay?
I'm good. I'm good. I have a very strong relationship with God, so prayer definitely works for me. I have children and grandchildren who are watching me, who are encouraged by what I do, and they're proud of me right now, you know, and that's really what matters, you know. The change starts at home, you know, so as long as you have a support system that believes in what you're doing and supports you in what you're doing, you have everything you need to go out there and fight the good fight. And for those that don't, there's a community of people here to help you. So you can go to places like morethanavote.org. There are many different places that will encourage you, inform you, and they will put you with groups of people that feel like you, that are ready to take action. So no one has to go about this alone if they want to do it.
Yeah, we're stronger together. People have been saying it, but that has much more meaning now that we are in our movement, not just this moment. Bumby, it has been an education, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Keep fighting the good fight.
Keep up the good fight.
Yeah, la la.
So our next guest, I have to admit, I'm a fan, but there are so many different people that we could talk to, and I thought it was so imperative that we speak with her. You know her as Molly on the huge, successful show Insecure, HBO's Insecure. She also has a comedy special highlighting her Nigerian roots, and she's an amazing podcaster. Let's welcome in Yvonne Orji, everyone. You have such a beautiful way of making things funny, giving us our medicine with some candy, right? The humor and the healing. You bring all of that to your space. And right now, as you look across this country and how everyone is so broken and so upset, if it's not social injustice, it's the pandemic, it's depression, unemployment, the list goes on and on. How are you doing, quite frankly?
You know, I'm rediscovering self in a way that is hard, but necessary, that will lead to ultimate joy. I know it sounds like a lot, but no, I think I personally think that God put all of us on a global timeout. Like, we just, you know, America hasn't done as good as other people when it comes to timeouts, because everyone else is out playing at recess, and we're still in the principal's office hoping and wishing we can come out. But I think that if we settle into the timeout and really learn the lesson that we're supposed to learn from this season, I think we'll emerge better. We'll learn how to play well with others in more ways than one. And so personally for me, I'm taking this time to learn me in a new way. I feel like I'm being ushered into a new season, and I'm getting still, because sometimes the busy confounds the work that we're supposed to actually be doing. You know, we're busy doing other stuff, but we got work that we need to do on the inside. And I'm leaning into it. I'm like, dang, I thought I was gonna be able to rest like everybody else. And God's like, nah, we got work to do.
You know what? And I think that's what everybody is saying about 2020. It's demanding that we be better. And you said it's a global timeout. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, it's like, everyone sit down, be humble, to quote the great prophet Kendrick Lamar. But like, no, seriously, sit down and let's reevaluate some things. Let us unearth and shake up the things that we have been trying to hide within ourselves, within our nation. I think America is going through an unraveling right now, a much needed, a much necessary one. And I think all eyes on us, right? There is no, oh, I was on the subway for an hour, so I didn't miss that thing that happened. No, everybody was home. Everybody, you know, was watching when George Floyd died, and everybody, no one could hide it. Everyone was watching when Amy Cooper called the cops. Like, this is a time where it's like, oh, we can't pretend it away. We can't excuse it away. No. It's a global timeout. Sit down, watch, and let's learn. And globally, it's like, hey, we were going business as usual, but it ain't usual no more. Like that's old. Anytime change occurs, it's very uncomfortable. And so right now we're sitting with we're getting we're getting comfortable with the uncomfortable.
The minorities, we've been comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that to me explains just the existence for whatever we want to do, how we break into our careers, how we live our lives, how we find ourselves one of the few or one of the first. And that's a lonely road. When you look at, and when you talk about this global timeout, everybody had to pay attention to Amy Cooper. Everyone had to pay attention to George Floyd. How is that helping us as a people, as a country, during our global timeout?
I think, well, one, we're not minorities, Cari. You already know it. It's like these labels that they put on us. It's like the same way of saying like black on black violence. Also, there's no white on white violence. It's branding.
Yeah,
right. It's all branding.
Yeah, you're right.
It's like white people kill white people every single day. So no, there is no black on black violence. And if you say black on black violence, well then let's brand white on white violence. Like, I watch Investigation Discovery. Ain't too many of us been featured. So, I just even like, but to answer your question, what does that do? I think what everyone expected is what has happened in the past when the world was still open, right? In that, okay, you had everyone from Trayvon Martin to Castillo to Sandra Bland. You had all of these lives lost, and Black people made some noise. We rioted. We got out in the streets. We started the Black Lives Matter movement, all of those things. And then white people kind of just like, oh, let's give them something. And then it's just like, is it over? It's like Oscar is so Black. Okay, good. We gave some Oscars. Are we good now? Like, are we even? And it's now it's just like, oh no. This is not about like a Band-Aid. It's like, yo, we might have to amputate the leg a little bit, but it's all right, because by amputating the leg, we're gonna save the body. And so I think that's what's happening now. Like, America is realizing, like, oh, Black people aren't just making a little bit of noise. Like, the protests are still out. The conversations are still being had. The change is still being demanded. And I think they're seeing, oh, this is not going no way. And no, it's not, because we need systematic change.
What a beautiful way to explore what is happening and describe our country. We might have to amputate the leg, but that's to save the body. That's what's happening right now. That's beautiful, Yvonne. And to that end, I have to ask you this, because the way that we do that, we use our voice. And our voice right now in this world, in this country, is our vote. And everyone talks about voting and how important it is, but I feel like more than ever we understand that it's not just about voting every 4 years for the man in office. It's about your local elections. It's about the mayor. It is about the district attorney, the people who have the power to bring charges against police if police brutality is an issue in your community. If you care about your school district, you can run for the school board. I ask this of you, right? Your parents are from Nigeria. You are Nigerian. You talk about that very lovingly. What does voting mean for you?
I think voting is power. I remember, I became a naturalized citizen back in the 90s when, because I was still a minor, my mom naturalized, and so we were able to do it under her. And just even that power of like, we're American citizens, and all the access that we have by being citizens, one of those accesses and those access to power being voting, it's a big deal. It's a big deal because not only do we have the opportunity to be in this country, but now we can be of the country. We can be of the systems. We can be of the rules. We can be of what it actually affords. But I think going back to your earlier comment about just the setup of systems, I think we are done a disservice, either it's schools or whatever it is. And I'm not putting teachers on blast. I think teachers do a phenomenal job, but for some reason, we do not, and give them all the raises. I know too many parents who are like, this child of mine, I do love them, but hey, where can I drop them off? And I do think that there's a disservice done because, again, when we talk about voting, to your point, we talk about every 4 years. It's important to vote for the presidency. We don't realize, like, oh, snap, we actually can vote about, like, how much our libraries get. It's like small things like that, but they make a big difference.
When you think of voter suppression in this country, what does it look like for you?
It's the systems. When we talk about voter suppression, we also talk about systematic racism, right? It's all the systems that set up. And we've normalized, okay, maybe your job will give you a half day, or maybe, you'll be able to get this luxury. It shouldn't be a luxury. It should be built into the system. It should be built into the fabric of how we vote. But maybe you'll be able to get this luxury in order to enable you to go vote. Think about everything disenfranchised, marginalized Black person has to endure in a day. So in a day, you need to get to work. If something happens to your car, if something happens to your child care, if something happens to, there's so many factors along the way that can send you into a tailspin as an American. And then you add on as a person of color. If you're just trying to get to vote and you already have to go through all of these hurdles and hoops in your everyday life, imagine the one day when your voice really is supposed to matter the most in this country. But then you also see all the times that you tried to have your voice matter, and then it's been shut down, repressed, told it doesn't matter. And then you're kind of like, what's the point?
How do we keep hope though? If I'm watching this right now, how do we as a people stay hopeful? How do we believe in the promise that these quote unquote forefathers have given us?
Because have you met Black people? By default, like hope is infused in our DNA. Like you said, like if we haven't been broken now through, be it through slavery, through capitalism,
give it to me,
colonization, through segregation,
right.
through, I mean, listen, the history of Black people in this country is, at one point, we were 3/5 people.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That was a written law. And look at us now. We are whole. We are Black girl magic. We are Black boy joy. We are, what I'm saying? What I think about in terms of giving us hope, right? We're making a lot of people nervous right now, Cari. We're making a lot of people nervous right now because they're like, dang, we put all these obstacles in their way and these jokers are resilient. But that should give us hope. That should give us hope that, like, we can't stop, won't stop. I mean, I went to the school of Diddy, you know what I'm saying? Hashtag, Harlem shaking it right now. Can't stop, won't stop. And I think that's our motto. We can't stop voting and we won't stop voting. We can't stop marching and we won't stop marching. We can't stop thriving and we won't stop thriving.
To that end, because you led me directly there, I've been asking everyone who's appeared on this platform, what does activism look like? And I feel like back in the day, we had an idea. Yes, it is marching. Yes, it is protesting. Yes, it is speaking out against things that we feel are not right or unjust. But talk to me about what activism looks like for Yvonne Orji.
Listen, activism, I think the beauty of activism is that it has many faces, right? You're going to have the people on the front lines. Like, you know what? Martin Luther King marched, but there were a lot of women who were in the homes like, hey, BT Dubs, when they come back, this is how we support all the people who are marching on the front lines. And we're going to be here doing what we know to do best here. And you know what? Somebody needs to bail them out of jail so now we need to be in the community, getting money or whatever it is. So it's like everybody has a position to play. And so play your position like a shortstop, bruh. So whoever you are and whatever you do, play your position. So activism could look like, you know what? I'm not the one that's built to be on the front line, but you know what? My pockets go deep. So I'm gonna support the people on the front line. I'm a comedian. Black joy is a form of activism.
There's always a call for entertainers or celebrities that have the platform to do something. Why aren't you speaking out? I'm not a believer in thinking that it's mandatory. Like you said, everyone can be an activist and be activated in different ways. But talk to me about the connection. Talk to me about the marginalization in your world and how you feel like it even inspires you to say more and use your platform to do more.
Beneath the surface of what we do, like Niecy Nash says, it's the who, right? The who is the person who's going to be like, hey, let me call this out. Either blind racism in terms of overt racism, in terms of ways that we can be better, in terms of ways that we can actually be more uplifting to the community that you may not even realize that you're serving.
Before I let you go, talk to me about the urgency, in your opinion, for people to vote, our people to get out and vote this coming election.
Yeah, I mean, guys, if you think you're tired now, I'm telling you right now, we cannot take this sitting down. We can't take this jokingly. I understand that it may be hard to figure out who to vote for, but at the end of the day, we got to vote for our families. We got to vote for our legacies. We got to vote for continued progress. We have to vote for upward mobility. We have to vote for equality in a way that is long lasting. And if we succeeded before, we can do it again. You talk about the whole, this is the time. This is not the time to give up. This is not the time to pretend a way that we haven't made progress. We have. There's still much more to be done. And you know what? We might have to get to a point where we pass the baton to our children and our children's children, but we still have work to do now for that generation.
Yvonne Orji, you are everything. You are Molly, but you are not Molly, but I love you so much as Molly on HBO's Insecure. You are an amazing podcaster, Jesus and Joloff. Shout out to Lovey. And then we also have movies. Like you, The World, you're a model, a cover model. Also, wait, don't let me forget your hugely successful stand-up comedy special on HBO. Girl, you're doing it all. And I am so grateful. You're truly the dream, not just the American dream. You're the Black girl, brown girl, do it all dream, the immigrant dream, everything. You're a beautiful, beautiful soul. I really, really mean that from the bottom of my heart. Yvonne Orji, ladies and gentlemen, nothing but the best and excellence personified. Thank you so much, my friend.
I love you so much, Mama. Mwah.
Yeah, la la.
So Atlanta has been one of the hotbeds in terms of political unrest and social injustice. We've seen so much happen in that city, and we've also seen so much come from that city, including one of our very own founding fathers of the civil rights movement, and that's Martin Luther King Jr. But right now, we want to welcome in someone who has used his platform to talk about voting, to talk about racial injustice, and how he's trying to help. Atlanta's very own Russ joins us now on We the People. Russ, I'm not going to fan out and tell you what some of my favorite songs were that I listened to repeat on yours. We're going to get to the topic at hand. So Amazing. We got to talk about, recently you did an interview where you shared your outlook on culture and music. And you also were very candid about the fact that you have a privilege and that it's necessary for you to give back. Tell everybody about what that means.
It's very obvious. I'm white and I'm in Black culture and I'm benefiting financially off of it. So I feel like if you're a white person financially benefiting off of Black culture, you have to put finances back into Black culture. It's just that simple. The screenshots with your feelings, it just comes off like fake empathy because it comes off very dismissive and very, oh, that sucks for y'all. But anyway, back to what I was doing.
Have you felt that way always, or is it now because of the time of where we are in this country?
I've always had the feeling. I think now it's just obviously elevated. It's a new level and there's new, it's to the point now where you can't, first of all, you can't not say anything. Second of all, though, I just think saying something isn't enough anymore. I think, if you have the ability to put money back into a culture that you're financially benefiting from, you have the ability to, you should.
It's interesting that you talk about it in that way because some people do believe that silence is the best way to go because it's hard to talk race, especially if you're white and you're in the Black culture. People just feel as if they can't talk about it. They feel awkward. They feel as if they don't have the privilege or the voice or the words. How do you find yourself right now in terms of interacting with people when they want to talk to you about social injustice, police brutality? What's going on in this country right now?
Well, first of all, picking and choosing whether you want to be silent or not about race, that's a privilege in and of itself. But no, I try to just do my best to listen to the Black people around me and the educated Black people I have in my life. So I do my best to not act like I have all the answers for everything, especially in a culture that I'm not from. But that's why when we decided to raise the money for Black Lives Matter organizations, we, when we raised 500,000, we got on the phone with some of the women who started Black Lives Matter. I got on the phone with Tamika Mallory. I was on the phone with Karen Civil and talking with my friends to make sure the money went to like the correct places, and people who really need it. It's just about listening. That's all. It's about listening.
Let's talk about that for a moment, because the way I think of activism, for me, it looks very differently. It's not necessarily just protesting on the front lines. I think that's great. But what about being an activist in the way in which you have decided to be one? What inspired you? What did it look like? You said you raised money for Black Lives Matter. What did you do? Mm-hmm. Walk us through everything that you did and how you find yourself in this moment right now.
So for me, it was 3 years ago, I had like a string of festivals, and I decided that I was going to wear T-shirts with a message on them, because I figured what better time to use a platform than in front of, a bunch of people. So one of the T-shirts I wore was, if you want to change the system, speak up, white silence is pro-racism, the whole thing. And it didn't really it kind of got swept under the rug back then. But when all this stuff started happening again, and it's been happening, the police brutality against innocent Black people, I was like, man, I'm not the biggest artist in the world, and I certainly don't have the most white fans in the world, but I got a good amount of people that I can definitely mobilize and turn into some money. And I know they're down for the cause because it's merch, it's a good thing. And I've always been outspoken anyway, and so how am I going to be in Black culture and not be outspoken about racism?
And then I got to ask you this, because you grew up in Atlanta, so that gives you a heads up, depending for so many people, because you're in the crux of that beautiful Black city where there are so many wonderful Black leaders, home of so much great music and things that speak to our culture right now. And we are really, really getting our word out, especially with this platform today, and saying that we must use our voice to vote. Talk to me about what the importance of voting for you in this upcoming election.
Yeah, so I, full transparency, I had never voted before, ever. And because, I was one of those people who was like, my vote doesn't matter. And, and I don't know, maybe it's because I was younger, maybe it's because I really thought that, or I don't know, but I just think that it's got to, now this is a bit of a privilege to say it's got to a breaking point for me, because obviously it's been past the breaking point for Black people. But I think that as a whole, the young people need to get out and vote, because we're the ones that never show up. You know what I mean? We never show up to vote, but we're the future. So it's like, look, we got to go out there and vote, and then whatever happens, but at least we did our part. You got to do your part.
You're very candid in saying that you just decided to vote. And I think there's a beautiful irony in the fact that you have your fans saying, because of you, I'm voting. Right. And there's something beautiful about that. But I want to know why now for you. Why in this moment is it important for you to vote? And what hit your spirit to say, yes, this is the time to do it?
Honestly, because I think that George Floyd really woke up a lot of people who, including myself, who I was vocal and outspoken about racism. I put it in my lyrics. I put it on T-shirts. I would talk about it in interviews. I was vocal about it. But that video in that moment, I think me along with a lot of other people just kind of was like, all right, words are simply not enough anymore. We got to do something, whether it's raising money, whether it's voting, or all the above. We got to do something, and I'm ashamed that it took that for me to be like, I need to raise money and I need to vote. It's a shame. And I don't know, I guess it snapped a bunch of people out of it, and even if you were vocal and whatnot, it's time to actually put your money where your mouth is. It's time to go vote. It's time to just stop talking about it and be about it, and it's been time for that. But like I said, I'm ashamed that it took me this long to actually really, really be about it, but I'm here now.
So Russ, we all know that this is going to be your first time voting. Tell me what that experience is going to be like for you in terms of what you're excited about.
I think, what it's going to do for me? It's going to let me know that I'm contributing to something bigger than myself, and I'm actually putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm being about it because, you know, for so long, and I know I'm not alone with this, but, you know, standing on the outside and just screaming about this and that, and this should change. And it's like, all right, but did you vote? You know? And so I'm, you know, I know it's going to feel good to know that I played a small role, you know? And that's the problem. I think the mentality of like, my vote doesn't matter needs to be changed to my vote, albeit small, does matter. It's a role I'm playing. And if I play my part and you play your part and he and she plays their part, then we make a difference. But you know, it'll feel. I have a feeling it's gonna feel very, very bigger than me. I mean, I think when you realize that giving actually feels better than receiving, that's when you start wanting to do your part and contribute. So, voting is an easy way to give. You know.
Yeah. To whom much is given, much is required, and you have been given a huge platform, and we are so grateful for you, Russ. Philanthropist, artist, community activist, first-time voter. We appreciate you for doing this, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate y'all.